Welcome to War Tech, the channel where we bring you the most up-to-date coverage of the Russia-Ukraine war through detailed analysis, verified reports, and battlefield footage from publicly available sources. Here, you will find stories of Ukrainian drone strikes, FPV, kamikaze drone attacks, and frontline reports showing how modern warfare is evolving. From the destruction of Mi-8 helicopters and Nebo-U radar systems in Crimea to massive explosions in Kuban military facilities, every operation reveals the scale of this conflict. We cover Russian infantry infiltration attempts in Zaporizhzhia, the neutralization of armored convoys, and precision strikes on hidden shelters deep inside forests. Our content highlights the role of reconnaissance drones, thermal imaging, and kamikaze drone operators shaping today's battles. This channel does not glorify violence but provides war news, military analysis, and combat footage explanations to help you understand events as they unfold. Subscribe now for breaking updates, Ukraine war footage, and insights into the future of modern military technology. September 2025. The Russian army launched an attack with armored vehicles in the Zaporizhzhia region. However, Ukrainian reconnaissance units detected the enemy's offensive attempt early on. Therefore, preparations were made to attack the route of the Russian armored vehicles. The units used powerful tank mines and FPV kamikaze drones to destroy these vehicles, which were covered with additional armor. When the Russian armored vehicles entered range, they were met with a powerful attack by Ukrainian forces. Explosions were rising one after another in the enemy armored vehicles. Ukrainian troops caused great panic among the enemy crew with powerful tank mines and kamikaze drones. The crew made sudden maneuvers to escape the attack zone after a series of violent explosions. However, the Ukrainian Army's FPV drone operators carried out highly accurate attacks on the enemy army's armored convoy. As a result of the coordinated attacks by the units, the Russian army's armored vehicles were engulfed in black smoke and began to turn into piles of scrap metal. The Ukrainian army's determined defense is quickly dispersing and shattering the enemy. September 22, 2025. Russian soldiers had begun moving on foot toward Ukrainian positions east of the town of Tovste. Russian infantrymen were advancing through wooded areas, attempting to hide from Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. However, enemy soldiers were quickly detected during precise scans conducted by reconnaissance units. Acting on the reconnaissance units' reports, the FPV kamikaze drone team suddenly began attacking enemy soldiers. Explosions began to be heard from different points in the wooded areas during these attacks. FPV drone operators first mark Russian infantry, then perform a steep dive and neutralize the enemy. Believing they were invisible in the forested areas, the Russian infantrymen advanced with ease, unaware of the Ukrainian drones. This is because Ukrainian drone operators were tracking enemy soldiers from high altitude. They then made a rapid dive at the enemy's weakest moment. The Russian soldiers heard only a sound like the buzzing of a fly. After that sound, an inevitable end awaited them. Thanks to the coordinated efforts of Ukrainian forces, Russian infantry are prevented from disappearing from view in such terrain. Reconnaissance units constantly monitor enemy soldiers and relay their hiding spots to the assault team, increasing the accuracy of the attack. The Ukrainian army's kamikaze drone completely destroys the Russian forces' barracks with this attack. After the attack, enemy soldiers immediately try to enter the underground shelter. However, Ukrainian infantry catch the enemy soldiers as they enter the shelter. Russian infantrymen immediately try to flee from Ukrainian soldiers. They do not surrender. Kamikaze drones belonging to Ukrainian forces carry out a swift attack from the sky on the fleeing enemy soldiers. Enemy soldiers hiding in the vegetation are neutralized by a violent explosion. An infantryman trying to escape the first attack is completely neutralized by a second attack. A group of Russian soldiers are trying to use abandoned buildings as cover when suddenly a violent explosion occurs. This explosion destroys almost everything. Ukrainian forces continue their attacks without pause. They detect enemy infantry trying to advance through forested areas and carry out effective attacks. After the attacks, the enemy infantry is neutralized. The fleeing Russian soldiers hide in the nearest underground shelter. However, drone operators enter the enemy's shelter and blow it up. The Ukrainian team quickly detected Russian soldiers trying to hide in the wooded areas with thermal camera drones. Enemy infantry detected by thermal radar are neutralized through skillful attacks. Advanced systems halt enemy activity more swiftly. September 14, 2025. A Russian-owned Bukhanka vehicle is spotted by Ukrainian forces. The unit had also detected a large amount of ammunition inside the enemy vehicle. The Phoenix unit launched FPV kamikaze drones at the moving enemy vehicle. An FPV kamikaze drone carried out its first attack, causing a large explosion. The attack triggered the ammunition inside the vehicle, further increasing the scale of the explosion. Ukrainian forces immediately launched a second FPV kamikaze drone to completely destroy the enemy soldiers and their vehicle. The drone operator's second attack completely destroyed the Russian target. September 14, 2025. Russian soldiers had hidden in forested areas to establish a foothold on Ukrainian territory. Enemy troops were attempting to establish deployment points on foot within the forested areas and were constructing shelters at these locations. However, reconnaissance units and intelligence units, which are the surveillance units of the Ukrainian army, were conducting intensive search and sweep operations. They quickly detected all movements of the enemy army with reconnaissance drones. Subsequently, the coordinates of the enemy's shelters and positions were marked. After the reconnaissance units identified the enemy soldiers' staging points, the FPV kamikaze drone operators were ready to attack. The operators headed towards the coordinates received from the reconnaissance units. They approached the designated enemy targets with precision and carried out effective attacks. The kamikaze drones of the Ukrainian army, particularly those of the unit called Hellgolfer, were giving the enemy a living hell. Shortly after the kamikaze drones marked the enemy target, attacks were carried out, followed by violent explosions. After the explosions, Russian soldiers panicked and abandoned their positions. However, reconnaissance drones had detected the enemy soldiers' new hiding places. An FPV kamikaze drone approached this location with precision and struck. Seconds later, a huge explosion neutralized both the Russian soldiers' shelter and the infantry. After the violent explosions, enemy soldiers are trying to use nearby ruined buildings as shelters. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian army's drone teams continue to work in a coordinated manner. Reconnaissance units are tracking enemy soldiers moment by moment. The buildings where they are hiding are reported to the kamikaze drone operators. The operators are successfully neutralizing enemy activities by carrying out successive attacks on the points where the enemy is hiding. The powerful ammunition in the FPV kamikaze drones is successfully reducing the buildings where Russian soldiers are hiding to rubble in a short time. In these effective attacks, the high-precision strikes of the FPV drone operators are neutralizing the enemy in a short time. September 22, 2025. Let's look at how Russian soldiers are trying to infiltrate the Ukrainian defense line in the Zaporizhzhia region and the level of vigilance of Ukrainian troops against enemy forces. Russian army soldiers continue to try different methods to infiltrate the Ukrainian defense line on foot. The enemy tries to use trees and vegetation for camouflage. However, observation drones patrolling the Ukrainian defense line immediately detect this infiltration attempt by enemy soldiers nearby. They immediately take action against the detected enemy. Within a short time, enemy soldiers are identified one by one. FPV kamikaze drones inflict hellish attacks on enemy soldiers. Russian infantrymen are neutralized by kamikaze drones before they can even see Ukrainian positions. September 21, 2025. The Ukrainian intelligence service launched an attack on Russian military targets in Crimea using kamikaze drones. The units inflicted significant damage on enemy forces, particularly military vehicles. During this drone strike operation, which took place at night, 3 Mi-8 military helicopters and a Nebo-U long-range radar system belonging to the Russian army were destroyed. The high cost of the targets destroyed by the Ukrainian army dealt a major blow to Russian forces. September 24, 2025. The Ukrainian army carried out a major attack with unmanned aerial vehicles in Russia's Kuban region during the night. These attacks targeted Russian military production facilities. Violent explosions occurred during this operation, which the Ukrainian army carried out with kamikaze drones. Ukraine's goal was to damage enemy production facilities.